Oh my gosh, look at these tomatoes. They actually started to die off and we were getting ready to pull them, and then I started finding these little green tomatoes all over them. I wish I knew what kind of tomatoes these are. My son planted them last year and we overwintered them, and for the life of me, I cannot remember what kind of seeds I gave him. And this bed is where I grew my cucumbers this year. And we did pull them all up, but if you look back there, we have a late cucumber coming up, so we're going to leave it there. I might even throw a couple of peas in here just to see what happens. I also found some potato sprouting in this cloth bag, and back over here are all my sweet potatoes. And then as I back up a little so you can see the whole bed, this is my herb bed, which is overgrown a little. So good afternoon, y'all. This is Kathleen at My Alabama Farm Life, and today I'm going to clean out my herb garden, and we are going to plant some garlic and some onions and a few other things today. So if you guys have watched previous videos, you know that I like using this black plastic garden mesh. I use them over my beds to try really hard to keep the chickens and the deer out and anything else that's, likes to eat what I have planted. It works well, but as you can see, the plants have grown through it. I've already cut back my spearmint, and I was hoping that I could get pulled the sage through, but that's not working out. So I'm going to have to cut back all this sage to make it easier to get through. I also have 3 oregano plants in here, and they were pretty easy. They just pull right through. So I didn't have to cut them back any, but I am going to have to do that pretty soon because they are just out of control. We also have a couple of onions in this bed. We've been growing these since last year. We actually grew them from table scraps. And my daughter-in-law, Andrea, she loves to chop up the green onions and put them in her soups. So they've stayed pretty cut down so far this year. Last year, during the fall and into winter time, we grew a lot of lettuce, some radishes, and some beets here. I haven't decided what to plant this fall, but I do have some parsley and some cilantro, and I even have some celery that I'm thinking about growing. And so as you can see, the rest of the stuff that was in here is grass and weeds, so I'm just going to pull the mesh right out. It's not going to hurt anything. That is all weeds. So I am going to admit that this beautiful weather is bothering me just a little bit. I feel like it's way too cool for September. We're getting lows in the 60s overnight and only up to the mid 80s during the day. I feel like I need to get my seeds in now and get them going before the soil temperatures get too cool to grow. Even my grass has slowed down. I should be thinking about pulling out my mower and mowing today, but as I was looking at it, my yard doesn't need to be mowed this week, which to me feels really odd. So I guess I'm going to take this extra time that I have after I get all my beds planted and all the weeds pulled. I'm going to get out my weed eater. I need to hack down all the extra grass that we have growing. And then I was also thinking about pruning back some of our fruit trees. We are way behind on that too. So this would be a good time to do it, especially our figs. We had a late freeze last spring and it hit them pretty hard, but they have grown back from the roots and they are looking really good, but there are a lot of dead branches on them and I need to get them cut off and hauled away. All our blueberries need a haircut. I don't think they've been cut back since my husband did it. Oh my goodness, I'm going to say 5-6 years ago. I think I have a picture of the devastation that my husband did. And as soon as I find it, I will post it right here. And I don't think the peaches have ever been cut down that I know of, and they need to be pruned back hard, especially that pear tree that we have back there. It needs to be topped off. It is just too tall and the branches are breaking off. Okay, so that's enough for this bed, and now we're going to work on planting the garlic. This is actually my strawberry bed, but my strawberries, most of them died. This seems to be just a bed. It's too hot and the strawberries don't like it. So I decided it would be a good place to put my garlic and onions. I ordered about a pound of German white garlic from Haas Seeds, and I ended up with about 39 cloves to plant. I decided that I'm just going to do about 3 rows of garlic. At first I was going to do 2, and then I was like, well, maybe might as well go ahead and do 3. So I'm going to do 3 rows of garlic here, and then I have some onions that I'm going to put in later. But you have to remember that when you're planting garlic, that you want the pointy side up and the root side down. You want to make sure that that pointy end is facing up towards the sky, and then you don't want to plant them too deep. I usually just poke them into the soil, and I want that pointy part just below the soil line. Again, you don't want to plant them too deep. This is also a larger size garlic, so I want to space them apart, give them some room to grow. The directions said to space them anywhere to 4 to 8 inches apart. And it also says to plant your cloves about 2 to 4 inches deep. To me, that seems like it's a little deep, but you know, I am going to be adding mulch on top of them before our first freeze, so that's going to give them a little bit more depth into the ground. Now, I would suggest that you follow the directions on the packaging for whatever garlic and onions you're planting. This is just the way that I'm doing it. And so far, I haven't had really good luck growing garlic. I'm hoping that this time is going to be the winner. Okay, so now it's time to start some seeds. I'm just going to do 1 row of each kind of onion that I have here in these packs. So I have a lot of onions, and I really need to get them into the ground. I also have some onion starts coming, but they won't be here until later. But like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and start my seeds now. So I have a onion, it's called a red Welsh from Baker's Seed. I have a Gladstone onion from Seeds of Change, and this is a Texas grano onion from Fairy Morse. So all of these seeds are really tiny, just tiny little things. They're not the smallest I've ever seen, but they are pretty small. So I'm just going to sprinkle them into this little trench that I've made. So this is the red Welsh. And then I am just going to cover them up ever so gently, just so that there is a thin layer of soil on top of them, because we don't want to bury them too deep or they won't come up. So I've done a little bit of reading about planting onions, and they say it's best to plant them twice a year. You can plant them in the fall and then also to plant them in the spring. So I'm going to try the fall, and then I think I'm also going to be ready to plant some more in the spring. But then again, we'll see what happens when spring finally arrives. Now, I have decided to start these straight into the soil. I have tried to start them in advance in containers, and for some reason they start out fairly well, but then they end up dying. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, so we're going to try it this way instead of starting them inside the house. So I've looked at the weather, and we are not expecting any rain anytime soon, so we're going to go ahead and give them a nice drink of water out of the hose. Of course, rainwater would be better, but we don't have that option right now. But I do have my fingers crossed maybe we'll get a late afternoon shower soon.
I moved the cart there. I figured it'd stop it from getting in.
That'll help. Now, while I was busy planting my garlic and my onions, my son was in this other bed, and he planted some gourmet lettuce mix, some tiny bok choy, and I also have a ton of cabbage that I want to get into the ground, so we ended up putting in a few red acre cabbage. All right, guys, so we are done and have everything cleaned up, and this is the end to this video. I hope you enjoyed it. You guys have a blessed and joyous day, and I'll see you on my next video.